Hi, I'm Matt. Welcome to my channel. Next week is Thanksgiving, so I figured I would make pumpkin pie. Last week I did pumpkin bread. So far that seems like it's been well received by everybody. There's almost 2,000 views so far. If you haven't seen it, maybe go take a look at that. I even got a couple people message me that they had made it and liked it. So today we're going to make pumpkin pies. The recipe that we're going to make is a homemade crust along with the homemade filling, and it'll make 2 pies. Couple important things of note. One, you want to make sure when you're buying your pumpkin, you're getting 100% pumpkin puree. You don't want to get the pumpkin pie mix. That's one. Number 2, this recipe uses evaporated milk, not condensed milk. So make sure you get evaporated milk. For the pie crust, I use Crisco. You can use Crisco, you can use butter, you can use lard, 1-to-1 on all of them. So this recipe calls for 2/3 of shortening. I'm using Crisco. You could use 2/3 of a cup lard. You could use 2/3 of a cup butter. If I was going with butter, I think I would use the European butter. It has a higher fat content. Or you could even mix it up. You could use 1/3 of Crisco and 1/3 of butter, or any combination you want. But I use Crisco. I do not use the butter flavored Crisco. I tried it, I didn't like it. This is just plain old original Crisco. All right, so I'm going to get all my ingredients pre-measured out, and we'll come back and we'll get it going. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is mix up the pie crust. So we're going to take 2 cups of all-purpose or general-purpose flour. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then we'll take our whisk and we're just going to give it a good stirring. And then we're going to take 2/3 cup of shortening. Again, I'm using plain old original Crisco. And then you're going to want to cut the shortening into the flour. Now you can use two butter knives like this. You could use a fork and do it. But many years ago, I got a pastry knife as a gift, and I didn't like it at first, but once I made it a couple times, this is the only way I make it now. So you're gonna use these blades and you're just gonna keep chopping up and down and knock the shortening off of your knife when it gets to be too thick on there. Just keep doing it, and you want to keep doing this until there's no great big chunks of shortening anymore. Okay, and if you take a look, you can see it's well combined, the shortening in with the flour. And if you press it together, you'll see it like makes a little cakey kind of texture. That's the way you want it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add 5 teaspoons of tap cold water. You don't want to use warm water because it'll warm up the shortening and make it too soft. And then with your hands, you're going to start to work that. Okay. Then you're going to pick it up, and you can see now it's nice and pliable. It's well combined, and you're going to make it into a ball. Okay, now it's a nice solid ball. It's holding together pretty good. Now you're going to set this down, cover it with a tea towel, and you're going to let it rest. Okay, so now we're going to get started with the filling. Start with our can of pumpkin puree. I'm going to use the whole can. Then our 2 cans of evaporated milk, 1.5 cups of sugar, 4 eggs beaten. I already broke these and beat them, but there's 4 eggs here. 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and a 1/2 teaspoon of ginger. Now you can speed this up and use a hand mixer. I like using my whisk. I don't like to impart too much air into the mixture, and I always feel like when I make it with the hand mixer, there's too much air going in there. So we're gonna just mix this until it's completely well combined. But once you get all the clumps of cinnamon broken up, it's pretty well combined. And we'll give it another quick stir right before we put it into the pie crust. Okay, so now we're ready to roll out our pie crust. So we'll pull it over, uncover it. It's been resting now. What you're going to do is you're going to take this ball and as best as you can, just cut it right in half with a butter knife. All right, and this is what we're going to make. So what I do, this is wax paper. You need to use wax paper. Don't try and do it with parchment paper. Parchment paper, it'll stick. Okay, this makes it a little bit easier to roll out. You don't have to add any extra flour. And you'll see when we're done, it sticks to your wax paper. It makes it easier to transfer it to your pie pan. All right, so I'll put this right in the center. And we'll start by flattening it out a little bit. Then you want to put this one on top. And you don't want to push too hard right at first. You want to just lightly pressing down, almost with just the weight of your hands. And you want to go in all the directions because you want to make this into a great big pie crust. And just keep rolling it. You're going to roll this out pretty thin because it'll puff up when it bakes. You want it to be even as round as you can. I don't know if I'm sure you can see I have a baker's mat here. And it's really nice because it has a circle printed on it. And I'm basically rolling it out until I get to the edge of the circles. Okay. Now I take my pie pan, and that's what you want to see. See how it sticks out all the way around? Okay. Just trim it off where it's squeezed out because it'll tend to stick a little bit on you. Now we're going to very gently take this off. There's your pie crust. You're going to take your pie pan and you're going to put it over it. And you're going to try to get it as even as possible. And picking it up, you're going to slide your hand under and flip it over. Now here's a little tricky part. You need to take this off, but now it's just the dough. So you want to go slowly, make sure it's releasing. Okay, got it going pretty good here. And slowly, not real fast, just okay. Now what I do is I gently just roll it up, pick up the edges and press it down into the little angle here where the side of the pie pan meets the bottom. And it's a little pliable, so it'll stretch a tiny bit. You don't want to stretch too much, just a little bit. Okay. Now you're going to go around the edges with your thumb and just make it nice. Any place where there's a little split, you're going to pinch it a little bit to seal it. Okay, that looks good. Now, you're going to take your knife and pushing down, only down. Don't pull up, only pushing down. almost done with your pie crust. Now you're going to take a fork and just go around, not too hard. You just want to indent it. You don't want to cut through the dough. And there you go. There's your pie crust ready to be filled with your pumpkin pie filling. Now, you don't want to just leave this sit uncovered while you roll out your next one. So I cover it with a piece of the wax paper I just used. I set it aside and I go to work on my next one. Okay, like I said in the beginning, now that this has been sitting a while, we're going to give it a quick, gentle mix right before we get it into the pie crust. There's our 2 pie crusts. Now we're going to pour this in gently and slowly and careful. We're going to try our best not to get any of this filling up onto the part of crust that you see when it's done baking. Okay. And we're going to put all of this filling between these 2 pies. They're going to be filled to the brim. Okay, let's get these pies in the oven. You can see I have my oven rack right in the middle of the oven. Now at 425, we're going to bake it for 15 minutes. Then we're going to reduce the heat. So I'll come back when it's time to reduce the heat. Okay, so it's been 15 minutes. Now we're going to reduce the heat to 350. For 45 minutes. Okay, so it's been 45 minutes now at 350. Let's see how they're doing. Okay. So the first test is the jiggle test. Just give it a little jiggle. I feel like they needed about 5 more minutes. Okay, let's check over again. So the first time they just looked a little too jiggly to me. They look a little better now, but the definitive test is you take your butter knife, you go right in the center, straight down and straight out, and it came out clean. Straight in, straight out. It came out clean, so they are done. So here's your pumpkin pies out of the oven. Okay, now I don't know if you noticed, but they were doing pretty good when we took them out, but now as they're cooling, they're starting to shrink back and settle down into the pie. So we'll let these sit for an hour or 2 on the countertop and cool, and then we're going to transfer them to the refrigerator to continue cooling. When they're in the refrigerator, you don't want to cover them when you first put them in. You're going to let them sit in the refrigerator a few hours without covers on them. But then after a couple hours, then you want to put plastic covers over these, because otherwise they'll dry out. You don't want them to dry out. But if you put a cover on them when you first put them in, you'll get condensation on the plastic and it'll drip down and the pie won't look right. So you see these 2 little slits. If you go to serve these for Thanksgiving, you want to make a nice presentation. You'll take your whipped cream, you'll put a dollop there, and then do a bead of whipped cream around the edges. Same thing on this one. And it'll hide your little test slit and make it look nice and presentable. Me, I don't care. I'm gonna take it right out of the fridge, cut my slice, put my whipped cream all over it, and eat it. So there you go. There's my pumpkin pie recipe and pie crust recipe. I reviewed the video while I was waiting for my pie to bake, and I did notice one mistake that I had made. It's not 5 teaspoons of cold water in the pie crust. It's 5 tablespoons, 5 tablespoons. You'll find the recipe in the description. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you did. If you haven't seen my pumpkin bread recipe, go back and check that out. After my family eats the pie, later this weekend, I'm going to do my pumpkin spice bread pumpkin spice cake with cream cheese icing, and I'll hopefully get a video up for that soon. So with that, I'm done, and I have to run to the grocery store. I forgot to get the whipped cream.